the words and the dialogue in these scenes do a really good job of explaining in like a real life scenario, while at the same time these like spectacle filled trials are basically just therapy for everybody. Like we literally got rid of Alice's inner demons this episode.
Literally,
you know?
yeah.
Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this is Welcome to the Writer's Room, where we analyze media in various forms and tell you why it works or why it doesn't.
Today we're talking about Agatha All Along, episode 4, titled If I Can't Reach You, Let My Song Teach You.
Quick spoiler warning before we get into it. We are talking about the show Agatha All Along, which is connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So any spoilers for anything that is in the Marvel Universe at all, comics, games, movies, we might not talk about it, but we also might talk about it. You've been warned.
Okay, summary?
Yeah, let's go. Well, I've been saying something in Latin each time. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Et fili.
The episode opens with the witches mourning Sharon. Alice and Teen are digging a grave while Agatha is ready to continue down the road as quickly as possible. After bickering, they realize they cannot go on without a green witch as the trial will require her skills. They decide to summon one using a spell and successfully conjure Rio as the replacement. They begin their journey again and come across a house that Alice is determined not to enter, though it makes it impossible not to as this is their fire trial. They enter the door and all transform into 1970s clothing. The Coven is exploring the house while Teen accidentally sets off the record player. It is painfully playing a song backwards. After stopping the song, the witches realize that Alice's generational curse has now affected them all. They figure out the way to end the curse is to play the song on the record. Their song is the Ballad of the Witch's Road, sung by Alice's mother. It is a protection spell that has been protecting Alice for years. As a rock band, they start the song. Alice eventually sees a manifestation of the curse, a demon-like figure, and is able to overcome it with her song, ending the curse. The exit opens right when Teen collapses from an injury. They leave the house and Jen heals Teen. Agatha waits by Teen's side for him to wake, while the rest of the Coven bonds over the fire. Rio shares one of her emotional scars with the group about having to hurt someone she loved despite not wanting to. Agatha, obviously affected by the story, walks off and Rio follows. The two share a sweet hug that ends with Rio telling Agatha, "That boy is not yours."
Wow. 1 minute, 20 seconds.
Oh, dang, that was long.
It's okay. A lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
I think this was another just really solid episode, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, me too. This one was definitely, I think, more like emotionally driven than the last one, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a fun difference. Like the focus on this one wasn't the trial. I think it was the characters and their like emotional journey more so, which is fun. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, let's go.
So we start kind of right where we left off, which I think is cool. The show's been doing that. I think each episode starts just kind of right where the last one ended, which is really fun. It feels like we're not missing anything when they do that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of sad. Well, for everyone except Agatha.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I love how she is still just like a terrible person. Like you can't convince anyone she's not just awful.
Right.
You know?
I do think I'll give you like specific instances later. I think it was really cool to see when things did affect her, and her wall, her shield is this like sense of humor and this not caring that she puts up.
Yeah.
So it was very, very cool to see in moments where things did affect her putting up this wall again.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder, and don't get me wrong, I think she's still like a terrible person. Like this is awful to act this way, even if it is a defense mechanism. It makes me wonder how much anything affects her, right? If it feels like she's really playing this role to the people in her life, and that's really cool to me.
Yeah, and we've seen it like the wall comes down when she's like interacting with Teen and stuff,
right.
And I thought this episode did a cool job of immediately bringing Rio into somebody else who also can put that wall down.
Right.
Because like you said, she's very affected throughout this episode, more so than normal, which makes the cocky, sarcastic bits even more in your face and even more funny to me.
Right. So Alice seems like a little bit more upset, and we get, this is like Alice's episode, right? We get a lot more about what happened with her mom, and basically Alice's mom had told her that the road would save her, and Agatha comes up and she's like, "R.I.P. Let's keep walking." And Teen and Alice are trying to bury a grave for Sharon, which I thought was really sad to think that her body will stay on the road then probably. And I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I also thought it was funny that only the two of them were digging. Like, obviously, Agatha wasn't going to help, but I like that the other two also weren't helping.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
I do think like it is.
Lily is like old, so I get that. But I thought it was funny that Jennifer's like, I would, no.
Right.
Thanks,
No,
you know?
on the spectrum of like, until we get Rio involved, but like who this coven is right now, Agatha's the worst, but Jen is like behind her.
Yeah.
Like she's next in line. And I think Jen to me just feels like her character is like a survivor.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Like,
very like self-focused, not necessarily
right.
evil, but
right.
like very clearly she's not going to dig a grave.
Right. Because I'm not going to waste my energy when we have trials coming along, you know?
Which is just fun. Again, like showing, not telling.
Right.
These characters. Like Alice is the helpful one. Teen, of course, is just happy to be here.
Right. Which I think is so perfect. Well, Teen also to me feels like he's a kind person.
Yeah.
Alice being the protector witch like just makes so much sense. Like that's perfectly written. I hadn't really put that together. Her being this protector witch and her being kind of like the lion, you know, and like this protector. Just I think it all goes together perfectly.
I agree.
And Agatha literally wants to leave Teen and Alice, and again that feels like a wall, you know, like
yeah.
And they kind of bring up this point that, well, it doesn't really even matter because they don't have a complete coven. And Agatha's so funny. She's like, yeah, Sharon, or what is she, Miss Hart, because she only calls her name that's not right. She was like, Miss Hart was a bad draft pick. It's just like, it is very funny. I think her one-liners are really strong. I
agree.
And they get into this conversation about like what has happened last time. Do they really need a green witch? What's going on? And they get into the line about the Ballad of the Witch's Road, and Agatha says that the line is, I don't remember the exact line, but she says it's two, meaning that like two people can make it to the end. And Jen is like, that is not what the song lyrics say.
Yeah, instead of with Coven True, it's with Coven 2. And she's literally just trying to lie.
Right.
Like, they all sang the same song at the beginning.
And that's what it is, yeah. And so then they're like, okay, well, how many, when you walked it last time, how many people made it to the end? And she kind of hesitates and then goes like, and lifts up one finger.
Yeah. Which now, like,
I kind of think she has.
After this episode, I think she has gone down the road. And was the other person Rio, probably?
I think because from their like conversation later, that's what it makes me believe.
Right.
That they've like done this trick before almost.
Yeah. Which I think is just really cool that like through the dialogue and the acting alone, I'm still guessing on like what's going to happen in the show. Because a lot of possibilities could happen and they're all like equally valid, which is cool. Yeah,
I don't know. It does make me think she walked the road, but it also makes me think that I don't know, maybe
I feel
last
like it's
time
gonna be one of those like technicality things, you know, like maybe she didn't like purely go through it, or maybe it is like a 1-for-1 like this again, but she's gonna like do something different this time and actually do the right thing or something like that.
I'm thinking last time like she played it for herself the whole time, and we don't know when it was that she walked the road, so we don't really know. Because part of her like name of who she is because she walked the road and had the dark hole, and she's like super powerful and a lot of years old. We don't know when she walked the road the last time. Yeah. So she might have been able to sort of play this trick of like, yeah, we are all a coven. We're gonna be in this together, but she really was not. Yeah. And it like could have worked last time. It's kind of what it seems like. Because maybe she didn't need to drink the wine last time. You know?
Maybe not. Well, and they said I do believe the road looks different if she had gone down it the first time. Like, I'm sure agree. These challenges were very different.
Yeah.
Especially if she went down like a long time ago. Like if she went, because she talks about her hundreds of years of being alive. If she went down in like the 1800s, they wouldn't have like a 70s set to go through or anything like that. So I think it's just like really smart writing. Like I am very curious on what is the truth, because there are a lot of valid ways that the events could have happened.
Right. So then they start bickering again, and I always think that their dialogue of them fighting is really strong. I think they all can give it enough nuance that it doesn't get played out.
Oh yeah.
And basically Teen comes up and says that we were supposed to be looking out for each other, and that was our mistake. We didn't look out for each other, which I think is going to be like the whole lesson of the show kind of thing. And they just decide that they can't go on without a green witch because they're going to need her for a trial eventually. And so they decide to basically summoned one using a spell. And Teen is like so excited because he has a spell book. And I thought this little like moment was really funny. They're back and forth of what they were like wishing for. They have to be specific with their words of what they want.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny because Lilia, Patti LuPone specifically is like, we need to be very specific, careful but very specific. So I thought they all had to like agree on a person, and then we cut to like look pretty, you know?
Right.
I also want to talk. They carve a little, like in the leaves on the ground. They make a little person-sized opening.
Mm-hmm.
And it. I was blown away by, again, just like the set decoration of everything.
Yeah.
Like these leaves are straight out of like a cartoon. They're like
Yeah.
perfectly crisp fall leaves. They're like the most rich oranges and yellows, and just like both in the sets we go into, like we go into the 70s looking set, which is phenomenal. We go into these different sets for the different houses, but the road itself, like the cinematography is great, the directing is great, but like the art design of the show is phenomenal.
I agree. Because it looks pretty actually, which
it's
I
gorgeous.
do think is important because it is like an art form.
Yeah.
But it also is so cohesive. Like somebody designed everything.
Yes.
There was a why behind everything. And that is like always what I say when you're directing and creating things, is that if you don't have a why behind the choice you made, you got to find one or it's not the right choice.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, just somebody sat down, had a reason behind everything they did. And it's really, I feel like it shows.
Yeah. And it's very clear that reasoning is in line with every other aspect of production. Like the look of the show ties in all the kooky effects and stilted, like quirky dialogue. Like it all is so cohesive together in a way that I am really trying to rack my brain to think of another thing that does it this well while being so weird.
And I thought about it. So them using pretty much exclusively like practical effects, and then sometimes when we get into like magical things using some CGI, I think fits with the style specifically because they're referencing so many things and paying like homage to so many different things, especially like Wizard of Oz, that it roots it in this, like, one, it feels like it's really coming from the world.
Yeah.
And two, like, let's say we saw something that was very clearly CG in the Wizard of Oz movie, it doesn't fit, right? Or like an old-timey movie or something like that. It doesn't fit because it doesn't make sense for that time period, and the rest of the world isn't like that. And so I think going with this practical vibe, it sort of just fit. It fits in so many levels, and it fits with like all the different things they're paying a homage to and referencing. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that made it easier on set. Because like what really got me is later on in the episode we see the demon. And parts of it are CG.
Right.
But there's at least one shot, like the first shot we really see it. Like it's definitely part of a puppet or a costume or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I thought it may be a person.
Yeah. And I just feel like for the actors, that's so much better to like work off of than just looking at dots and green all over the place.
Right. That's such a good point. That's such a good point, because this episode definitely is character driven, and I was blown away by every single person's acting and their emotional commitment. And yeah, I feel like feeling transported in that world can help with that.
Yeah. And even just subtle things. Like, I don't know how much of the road set is real, but enough of it to like, it seems completely lived in. Like when they're sitting around the fire or whatever, sitting on the stumps talking, like I am there. Like there's not a single pixel in that shot that I'm like, that's not real. Because it looks so cohesive.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, so they're conjuring this green witch, and Agatha's like sort of the one saying the spell, but then they all one by one go down and say what they want. And Lilia, Patti LuPone's, is like, makes sense. She says basically like she needs to be capable and powerful and this and that, right? And says actual things that are helpful. And then Agatha goes, may she be smart and not annoying and not too political. May she be pleasant looking, was all Jen said. May she be pleasant looking. Yeah. And then Alice says, may she bring some Advil. Just also silly. Like, I don't know how the humor is such a specific style, but it all lands.
Yeah. Well, and I think it lands because they never waste a line. Like every joke is like showcasing the character, whether it be something we know or not already. Like everything Agatha says is funny. And I don't really think we learn anything about her, but it's another reiteration of like, this is Agatha. Like, of course she's gonna say that. That's so funny.
Right.
So I just, again, we've talked about this pretty much every single episode, but just the economy of how many layers everything in the show has makes it so fun to watch. And I bet the rewatchability is very high as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it almost makes me want to like start from the beginning now and rewatch
Try
again.
To catch all the references.
Right.
And it's so good.
Because there's so many. And so then, and I kind of knew this jump scare joke was coming, but it was still funny. So then Patty LuPone is like, true witchcraft takes time and this and that, just going on and on. And then Rio like pops out of the ground and she's like super creepy looking. Yeah. And Agatha's absolutely pissed. And Rio ends up saying she's not a green witch, she's the green witch, which I thought was another reference.
We know what that? Okay, yeah.
I just think it's supposed to be, well, one. So if you don't know, this is like a spoiler, but, and I kind of told you about this, but for like people listening, the Funko Pops like came out and it said on it that Rio was death and Teen was Wiccan. And the thing is though, is I've heard people say they did stuff like that when WandaVision came out and that was fake. It was like psyching people out. Whoa. I do think Rio's death though. Like in the lyrics of the song, they say like, I hold death's hand in mine. Yeah. And when Agatha's like, or when Rio says you can't kill me to Agatha, like stuff like that. I do feel like it makes sense. So I feel like that's kind of what she means, the Green Witch. And I would think what that means is like when people are dead and buried, like how that goes together. Because the Green Witch's whole thing is like earth and ground and plants and stuff like that. And I would think that's why those two go together. You know, like burying the dead, how we all go back to like nature, this and that. That's cool. And so I think that's why she means she's the Green Witch. I also think it's a reference to Wizard of Oz. For sure. Yeah. Because then right after this, Rio quite literally skips down the road and starts whistling.
Does the Wizard of Oz arm in arm
literally,
thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I wrote this down a little later. Two things I have to say. One, in terms of just like, as an audience member, not dissecting anything, Rio entering the fold is so much fun because now we have an actual like heavy hitter in the group, at least from what we know, right? I know the only thing I know power wise is that she is stronger than Agatha right now. Yeah. Which means she's probably the strongest one. And the way she carries herself, I'm like, oh, she's a baddie, right?
Right. Because she does not care. She's never in fear that she's going to actually die or have a problem. Exactly. So like that really tells me, she's not. There's nothing to worry about with this character.
Which I think is going to open up a lot of opportunity. Like you said, we sort of, at this point, know, okay, the trial, you're going to go to a house, change costumes, solve the thing. I think they're opening up the possibility for much more actual combat happening, which is very cool.
That is cool.
Because it would get really old if we just like trialed every single episode. Right. And they, even on the second big trial, they even like skipped ahead of it to have more character stuff. So I think they're thinking really far ahead on like, the things that they want you to guess easily are very easily guessable, but at the same time, they're keeping my interest like without hesitation. Like I am so interested in what happens because it's changing enough, and I love that.
Yeah, I agree. So then, Rio's skipping down the road, like obvious reference to Wizard of Oz. Follow the yellow brick road where they're like linked arm in arm, and they're all just sort of walking, and it's kind of fun because even now, Rio coming in has pushed Lilia, Jennifer, and Alice closer together. Right?
Like literally. Yes. The three of them are walking behind her, like talking about her loudly.
And it's just smart to see whenever you have a group of people like this, bringing someone else into the group, especially someone like Rio, who's like super powerful, but also just very chaotic. You don't know where she's going to go with things.
Very different from the first episode, I thought. She was acting very differently. Just much more like happy about things, which I didn't. I liked it. And again, anytime like seeing Aubrey Plaza play a character that is so different from what she normally does is so much fun to watch. I just thought that was interesting.
This had me thinking, I'm kind of like, we'll come back to what we were talking about a second ago, but this had me thinking about the first episode. I had originally thought Rio's character in the first episode when she came in as the federal agent, I had originally thought that was just Agatha manifesting that character. I thought it was fake. And I think I was very wrong. I think that was, I don't know if you thought that, but it was, I think that was Rio. That was clearly Rio. Coming in, talking to Agatha in real life, trying to get her out of the spell, sort of, and messing with her. Yeah. And maybe that was just me who didn't catch that. But up until maybe like the last episode, I thought that she wasn't real. But I really, she clearly was. So then, like I was saying, whenever you have someone that joins a group like this, especially like Rio, who's super chaotic and powerful and just like an outlier, you don't really know what she's going to do. It's going to change the dynamic, especially because they lost Sharon. So it was fun to see how there were consequences to things that happened, right? And it, both plot-wise and character-wise. So all three of them start getting closer together because they're talking about Rio. And that feels Jennifer, Alice, and Lilia getting close together. And that feels so natural because that feels so realistic. Like, I would buddy up with my friends if I was scared of this powerful witch and talk about her and figure out what's happening with her.
And I think it's like what you said earlier, like the balance between actual plot events happening and character moments are just melded so close, like so well in this. Like one of my favorite scenes is them talking about Rio as she gets there, and they're literally just walking. Like in my mind when we started this, I was like, okay, so they're going down the road. That's going to be tricky to keep literally just walking a path interesting, right? And like Wizard of Oz does it with all these elaborate set pieces and new characters and stuff, and that's exactly how they're handling this. Like that is crazy to me that not even the main set piece of the episode is one of my favorite parts because of the character dynamics, because they're so solidified.
And then Jen is like, I don't know how to feel. Do I hate her or want her phone number? And Alice is like, me too. But they're kind of scared of her. And Rio just thinks it's funny that they're scared.
Yeah. A lot of sexual attraction this episode.
Yes, very true. Yeah.
Which I was all there for. It was great.
Yeah. And they come to, is it a house? I think it's supposed to be a house. Or is it just a recording studio?
I think it's like a little bit of both. Like it's one of those like 70s in-house studio, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
exactly.
It's a recording studio, but it's also got a vibe.
Exactly. So they come across this like house that's red, and Alice immediately realizes it, recognizes it and says no, which makes me think this is what their house looked like, you know? And she's like, I'm gonna pass, and turns around. Except the road literally changes, so her direction is a really exact same path, her going towards the house. And so there's not really a choice.
They reveal it with this really fun like camera 360 spin, and Agatha's like, well, listen, I want to go home too, but the road doesn't. And I'm like, damn, that's so funny.
And they play this very ominous piano music when they see the house. And then they play it like immediately again when she sees the house again. It's funny, but like ominous, right? Like it feels, it is really good. So then,
I was thinking about this. This is the kind of show that just is Halloween to me. Right. Like it's not taking itself super seriously. It is campy. It is fun, but the stakes are high. Like I am actually invested, but it's also just like kind of silly. And I feel like, I don't know, it's October right now as we're watching this. So we're watching a lot of fall things. We're watching a lot of Halloween things. And I think this is one of those things that strikes the perfect balance. Cause I think people try to be way too serious for like Halloween things, like slasher movies and things like that.
Or like way too funny almost.
Or way too funny. Like they're too scared to lean in to actual elements. But like there's some stuff in the show that's like kind of scary. Like when it was expected, but like when Rio popped out, like that was in effect done really well. And like in the right context, like little off-putting, you know? So yeah, I was just thinking that throughout this whole episode. I was like, this is the vibe of Halloween to me.
And I feel like they really got that and stuck with it. I think, I don't know where I read this at or if it was like an interview or something, but someone was talking about in the second episode when Agatha walks out to see the wolf. Do you remember she had changed clothes and she walks outside and sees the wolf? And two things. One, the wolf, the mouse, and the raven, those were the Salem 7.
Okay.
You remember how we were like, what are those? They were the Salem 7.
Okay, that makes sense.
Duh, that makes sense, yeah.
Did we see 7 different things or were they just those?
It's just 3.
Okay.
And then, and apparently someone, what's his name? Kevin Feige, right? Who's like the guy. He was like, I don't really get why she's walking out of the house. It's just for her outfit to reveal it to the, and they were like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like we just want to see her outfit change. We needed it. Basically that. And he like was like, okay. That's awesome. And so I feel like the people that created it really got that. Cause everyone loved that. I thought that was so funny that she just walks out and is like feeling herself and thinks she looks great. And he was like, I don't get it.
I don't know where she's going, but she's going somewhere.
Right. And it like absolutely works because the people that made this got the style.
Cool. That's awesome.
So then they go up to the door And there's this really cool transition. They were doing some cool transitions, just some cool, the cinematography was really smart and some really, like impactful moments that helped tell the story and helped you feel emotionally invested. So we look at the moon and then we transition to the moon on the door. And we learn that it's a waxing moon, which means they're going into the fire phase. And then everyone goes in. Alice goes in last, and we're still the same shot of the door with the crescent moon. And Alice walks in, and we see her silhouette with the moon. It's just it's so fast, and it's not very like it's not like crazy important or anything. But one, it looked beautiful, and two, it's like, okay, this is her trial, right? We see her in the moon.
It's good.
It's really cool. So then they enter the house and they're all in their 70s clothes, which I thought was super fun.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like, man, Agatha looks like a fucking rock star. And then later I was like, oh, duh. Of course she looks like a rock star. She's about to have her own rock show.
Everybody just looked so hot this episode.
It was so cool.
And all the tension was around, like Agatha and Rio are
That's true.
feigning this tension. And it's like, damn, it doesn't help that everyone is just so hot this episode.
That's
like,
so
everyone's dressed so nice. And what you were saying, they leaned in so hard to this like 70s music video cinematography.
Right.
Like there are so many crazy Dutch angles and split screen shots, and it is so different from what we've seen before, but it's still very creative.
Yeah.
And it fit really well within, especially this episode, but within the context of the show as a whole. Like it's making each trial feel different as well.
Yeah.
Almost like when an animated show goes through different styles of animation or something like that, you know? I just think it's really, really cool because it's all from the same creative through line.
Yes.
But they're doing different things each time, which keeps it so interesting.
It's very cool. I mean, like in WandaVision, right? And this is very reminiscent of that, and it's supposed to be, but how each episode was a different decade. And so, of course, throughout the decades, we have changed the way we shoot sitcoms and how they look. And so they were doing the same thing. And it's really fun to see them do that with this and how they're changing the cinematography to tell the story in each trial as well.
Yeah. The lighting in this one was also so much fun.
Yeah.
Like it was constant purples and reds and blues, and it was like super 70s, but also just like gorgeous to look at. They were so saturated and like pure colors. It was great.
Yeah. Alice immediately says, do not eat or drink anything. And Rio's like, there's a story there. And she's super, I don't know. It's just very chaotic.
Yeah.
And they talk about how the road's not subtle, and they tell Agatha not to cheat this time. And so then Teen has the idea, well, let's go look at the mantle. Maybe there's something. And Agatha and Rio stay behind. And I just thought this was cool. I think the styling is like very, thought out, obviously. But when Rio was like immediately conjured, she opened her hand and there was a flower that she gave to Agatha. And I think that's the flower in her hair, the styling, which is cool. And then we cut to Patti LuPone. Everyone's just kind of exploring the house, and we're cutting to different people of what they're doing. And Patti LuPone, or Lilia, is looking around. And I thought this was cool because I think she's clearly supposed to be dressed as Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
Like one for one, like the hair, the makeup, the styling. It's all supposed to look like Liza Minnelli, which I think is like a reference to a few things. I think it's supposed to be like a 70s reference. I also think it's supposed to be a Wizard of Oz reference because Judy Garland is the mom of Liza Minnelli. And that's just like so, it's just fun. All these little Easter eggs in the story and the styling.
Yeah, I'm really curious to how much we're missing. Because
I know
that is such an off-the-wall thing to do, but at the same time makes so much sense.
Right. Whereas if you're not like someone who gives a shit about Liza Minnelli, you're not going to get that reference.
Exactly.
So I'm like, that's why I want to watch it again, because I'm like, I've got to be missing stuff. Yeah. So it's fun to hear what other people catch, and I don't.
And like obvious things too. Like, what was it, the first episode or the second episode with Jen? She had like a heart necklace on. And it's just like, if you're not like looking for that, you can miss that real easy.
Right.
But it's so good. It's so fun. It's so clever.
So then Lilia's looking at depictions on the wall. It's these like pictures of basically people dying. They're on fire. It obviously looks like medieval time period. And the sound design was really cool for this whole sequence of them looking around the house. Yeah. It's like a very 70s type of like just beat playing in the background, but then when we go to person, it like overlays something. So right now we have people just like screaming very distantly in the background underneath this sequence, and Lily is like crying, and I'm guessing these are the people from her vision in the episode before.
Yeah.
Or what happened to them or something like that.
Yeah, that or maybe witches or something like that.
Right. And Jen is walking around and she is looking at these masks. I didn't really know what these were for.
Me neither.
And maybe it's just supposed to be creepy, but I doubt it. I feel like they don't.
Yeah.
The show's so specific.
One of them was a lion mask, so that could be Wizard of Ozzy.
Oh, true.
I can't remember what the other ones are, but yeah, like regardless of what it is, like I'm here for it. It's great.
Right.
I'm creeped out. It's awesome.
And then Alice comes up and sees a picture of her mom on the wall. And it's a shot of the picture and Alice walking up and we see her reflection in it. Just so good to see like herself reflected in her mom.
Yeah.
So good. And Lilia comes up behind her and we see Lilia's reflection. And it's just a beautiful way to show that when, I don't know, they could have been holding a picture or something, right? Like this was a much more cinematography or one, it was prettier, and two, it helped tell the story to see their faces side by side like that.
That's the thing. Like, it's so fun to see this very functional cinematography looking so good.
Right.
Every picture is so thought through, and I really like it.
So basically, Lilia is saying it was true. She was trying to open the road, and Alice says, yeah, she wanted to open the road at her concert, and her fans would be her coven.
That was cool.
That was very cool. Very cool. And 2 years after the tour that they're talking about and looking at, they had to sell her catalog to keep the house. So, yeah, it just is very clear. There's a lot of, from her growing up, she's got a lot of emotions surrounding her mom and her music. And it's just good setup for like the rest of what's going to come.
Yeah.
And then Lilia like spaces out and goes, I don't like, am I kooky or wispy? And Alice is like, I don't know. And then she goes, oh, what did she say after that? Oh, she says, Alice, don't. Alice, no, don't. And then Alice is like, what are you talking about? And Lilia doesn't remember what she's saying. Yeah. She's just saying, she was kind of like, what do you mean? I don't understand. She doesn't remember that she had this vision and said this to her in that moment, which I think is cool because we saw her do this in the last episode, and in this episode we got more visions, but we also now understand, because I've wondered, does she know she's saying it? Why is that happening? And yeah, now we know that I guess she's like fully transported to that moment. Yeah, I agree. And we can talk more about it with her like things she says later. Right. But yeah, I thought this was a really subtle way to get if not explain what it is, get people thinking ideas of what's happening. Right. And like clear it up what it is a little bit, which is cool. Right. And all of these moments together were very slow. Yeah. Which I don't have a problem with when something is slow as long as it's good. It was very slow, and I thought it was cool because I think it built the tension. It was like we were waiting for the storm. It was very ominous. Because playing off of the last trial and how the things kept showing up, and then the wine and then the timer, and I'm just basically waiting for the ball to drop, waiting for what's going to happen, what bad thing is going to happen at this moment. Yeah. Well, and I'm also curious because like we have these scenes. Lilia and Alice are doing their thing. Jen's looking at the stuff. We have Rio and Agatha in the studio room talking. Like all these things happen. Then the trial happens. Then we have a ton of stuff after the trial. So I don't know. I have no idea how long that actually took. Right. But the pacing, being able to leave it so open like that is crazy to me. I agree. Because it did feel slow, but by no means boring. Right. Which I just thought was crazy. Yeah. Because usually it was pretty slow. Yeah. Usually pacing is always like, oh, this dead time could have been cut out. This needs to move faster. But to like purposefully have this space and me not think it was slow is crazy to me. Yeah. How good every aspect. Because that to me
is 100% the editors understanding the vision.
Right. Because
There are so many
everyone on the
levels of
team.
production where this could have not gone well.
Right.
And this is such a little thing. Like, this is not the main part of the episode. This is not the most interesting part. We don't learn the most, but it's done so well. And I feel like anybody who's not looking to like analyze stuff,
Right.
like, this is just a normal scene.
Right.
But I think to both of us, it was just like insanely well done.
Well, because I also, when you're directing something, right, you want to vary up pacing, and pacing is kind of the hardest thing to get. As like, I obviously like, I'm talking more about stage directing, but it transfers over to film. And so pacing is like one of the hardest things to make work, especially when you're talking about a specific time frame. So to have their pacing go from like medium to slow to fast to slow to fast again, right? It's just, it keeps you so entertained, and it's so well done. And the people who created it obviously understood how to be entertaining.
For sure.
So then Agatha's in the recording room, and Rio comes in, and Rio talks about, they keep dropping so many hints about like what the heck Rio does, her background, right? It's all so fast, and you're like, what does that mean? And it honestly leaves you with more questions, because Rio says, I'm impatient, and Agatha says she's too early, which again, this led me to believe they have walked the road before. And I think Agatha must have just been lying when she said only one person. See what I mean? Or,
well, I'm wondering, because she said, Alice asked who left with you, and she said one. So to me, it was the two of them.
Oh, you're right.
You know?
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, all the stuff, like their plan, how they know each other. This, again, the mass amount of sexual tension between them.
I know.
Which, again, I'm totally here for. And now that they're dressed in super hot 70s rocker costumes, it's even more apparent.
Right.
It's crazy. Like, yeah, because we go from the slow to so much information being thrown, but I'm not confused at all. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I want more. So then Rio says basically magic chooses the path of least resistance, which I thought was cool. It's fun to learn about the magic system in the world. And she says, why did you bring that boy? And Agatha sort of brushes it off and says, like, more hands, right? Which is many hands in the coven, right? And with very little dialogue between Agatha and Rio, I fully understand their character dynamic, right? Like, this told me that there is no trusting Rio, right? Agatha may have feelings for her still, which I think was very clearly communicated that they do.
Yeah.
But it was also communicated that they do not trust each other even a little bit. And then Agatha's like, what if we call a truce on the road? What if the road is Switzerland? And she says, what does she want? And she puts her hand on the studio microphone. I thought this was kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And Rio says, kill the witches. Or Agatha says this. Kill the witches and you get their bodies. And she's like, that's not who I am anymore. Like, setting Rio up to say that, which is so stupid. It's like, and again, so unhelpful.
Like, the palling together, they don't trust Rio, so immediately they're like, what is she saying, Agatha? And Agatha's like, I don't know. And they're like, oh, because you fully trust Agatha now, which is just really funny to me.
And nothing brings you together like an enemy.
Yeah.
And then this is when Teen accidentally sets off the record player, and it's playing the record backwards, and it's like sort of this chaotic moment, and it's all like hurting them, and they're yelling, and then Agatha just sort of breaks it and throws it on the ground, and then a metronome goes off, and they realize they've been cursed and that the trial is starting. And Lilia is set on fire, which is kind of cool that she was the first one. I thought the fire trial was going to be Lilia's. I did wonder, because in the vision in the last episode, the mom had the lighter.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And it doesn't have to be a perfect one for one. So then Lily is like smoking and burning, and Alice draws a protection circle around her with Rio's knife and a spell and stops. And they basically start to realize kind of what's happening, and that they're going to have to face this curse. And it's they can't, like, Teen says something like, can't we reason with the witch? And they're like, no, we can't do that. You have to face it head on. And Jen says, I'm going to need you to draw a circle around me. And then she gets hit too. And I thought this was so funny, because last time they keep doing this thing where when someone says something, it comes true. So like with this, Jen says, I'm going to need you to draw a circle around me. She got what she wanted, but it meant she was cursed too, right? Yeah. And in the last episode, Sharon, when she saw the kitchen, she goes, oh, bury me in this kitchen. Yeah. And then she died in the kitchen, right? So they keep doing this thing where sort of, it's foreshadowing, but it also feels like the road listens and things come true. And it's very cool. The road is like very literal. Be careful what you say on the road kind of thing. Cool. And so we realize they have these like burn marks on their shoulder. And they realized the song that was playing backwards was the Ballad of the Witch's Road, specifically Alice's mother's version. Yeah. And Agatha puts it together that it's Alice bringing the curse in. And it's this generational curse. And she has the marks too, just like her mom. And she hadn't thought it was real. And she kind of goes off and talks about how she can't keep a job. And all of this is so well acted.
I was going to say, I was actually emotional at this, which is crazy.
Right. It was so good. Everyone is so unbelievably talented.
Yeah. Well, and again, just like their chemistry with each other. I don't know how extensive they read with each other, but I could not imagine anybody else playing any other role. This group together is so synergized.
Right. And I like that it's a mix of people that are like lesser known. Like I hadn't known, don't know anything Jen and Alice, those actresses have been in before, but then you have like Patti LuPone and Aubrey Plaza next to them, you know? Yeah. So Teen gets thrown through like a glass window, and it's like
this is also another 70. There's a lot of like I forget what the actual thing is called, but you dolly towards the person, but you zoom out.
Yeah.
So it looks like the background is like it's that horror like dun-dun-dun-dun thing.
Right.
They do that like twice, like kind of back to back, and I thought that was super funny.
That is really cool.
Because again, in this like serious scene and like this emotional performance is happening, these like campy camera moves, and then like we've established the rule that like, okay, the curse is gonna come, you're getting burned, and then they're just like, actually, we're gonna throw Teen through a window.
Right.
It's so funny. I wrote this down. New rules are coming, which is like explaining curses and explaining family curses and how you can't ward them off and how you need to do this and that. But the world is already so crazy. Like I'm fully suspended in my disbelief, right? Anything could happen and I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Right.
You know? Which I think again is just really, really good on the writers and the story, like showrunners, to understand this world that well.
It feels like the lore is so decided on because one, it's really cool how they talk about it and the dialogue they use and how the specific language, like the only way to end a curse is to face it, right? And they all are in agreement, and usually it's Teen that is learning the information. Yeah. So it's very well done. It feels like I want to learn more about this sort of lore of witchcraft in this world. And so after Teen gets thrown through the window, Agatha goes over to him and he says, does that mean I'm part of the coven? Basically, the curse like attacked me too.
Such a cutie.
And it's really, really sweet and like kind of sad that he's like happy because it means that he's a part of this coven with them, right? And Agatha sort of puts it together that we need to play Alice's mom's version of the Witch's Ballad. And
which I didn't realize. I thought the version that they sung in the second episode was sort of her version.
I did too.
Just like without instruments. But it was neat hearing this other version. That was like the lyrics are changed a little bit, which I thought was fun. The instrumentation, obviously it sounds much more like a rock song. But I thought that was neat because I thought in my mind they sang her version because that's what everybody would know because it's a popular song. But yeah, I guess it's just the road is so well known by witches. They know both the original chant and this version, which is not good or bad. I just thought it was interesting.
It is interesting. And basically, Agatha puts it together that this version of the Witch's Road that her mom recorded is a protection spell, and it's been protecting Alice, and basically she should have died like years ago. And with someone singing this incredibly popular song at any point in time, it's protecting Alice, which is really freaking cool.
This was another one of those like, oh shit moments.
That is
that's
really
a cool reveal.
Cool idea.
Like it doesn't, in the grand scheme, it really doesn't even mean that much, but I feel like it was such a big like, you know?
Right.
Like,
I think it's just so creative to think of that.
Yeah, I love it.
And so they decide like hopefully they can protect themselves by playing the song.
Mm-hmm.
And before they start playing, it's so funny because they're trying to decide like who's going to play what. And like Agatha asks Lilia, who's Patti LuPone, can you play piano? She's like, no, I can play this like silly instrument.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like so sure Patti LuPone could probably play piano like perfectly because she's like so musically talented. But Alice is the one playing piano, which makes so much sense. And they start playing, and of course, like Agatha's singing lead. She even gets like burnt, and she's like, keep going, keep going. Yeah. Which makes me feel like she's like strong, you know, which she is, I know, but she doesn't have her powers.
Uh-huh.
What were you gonna say?
I just think it's funny again. Like she gets burnt and everyone's like, oh god, and she's like, no, we have to sing.
Right.
It's so silly.
It
but
is
it's
silly.
Still you're like, yeah, keep going.
Right. At this point, I was like, yeah, of course Agatha's dressed as like a rock star, like a 70s rock star. She looks like she's, I don't know, like Steven Tyler up there. She looks so cool.
Before they start singing, there's like, they're doing dialogue about who's playing what. And I really liked that Rio the whole time was just at the drum set practicing, which was really funny to me. And maybe that's like, they have done something like this before on the road, but also just like as a joke, I think it's hilarious. Because they're talking about serious stuff and she's just being chaotic and like, at one point, she's like slow-mo practicing the cymbal she's going to hit. It's really good. And it's just in the background. And you're like, what is going on?
Right. I feel like that's how they make her kooky character work. Is she never is like asking for attention or focus. She's like always in her own world because to her, like it really doesn't matter. Because I think making these kind of like psychotic characters actually good and not like over the top or annoying. There's a really fine balance, and I feel like she's got it on lock. Obviously, it's like Aubrey Plaza. This is the character she's played all her life, but I still think it's really well done.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense like as a character, right? Because we know, at least right now, she's the strongest of the group, so she has the least amount of fear. I'm wondering if she's stronger than Agatha pre-Darkhold, right? Because Agatha had to, as far as she said, travel through the road to get this power, right? And it looks like to me, unless she also went down the road, Rio just sort of has this power, especially if she is like death or whatever. Like she probably can't actually die. So the road probably just actually isn't scary. Like nothing probably scares her because she doesn't fear.
And she doesn't really care about these people. It's almost like she's like excited for them to die.
Which is cool. So it gives motive to your character being kooky. And then like what you said, she's not kooky for the camera. Like she's literally just off doing her thing. And then the camera sometimes picks it up.
Exactly. Same with like the people. So then they're playing this really cool like 70s rock version of the song, and things start lighting on fire, like the pictures and things in the background. And they're like, it's angry. And Agatha says, stop phoning in and play it like a witch. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, at some point she's like singing. She looks over at Jen and Jen's like smiling, like, cause they're like doing good. And I'm like, that's so funny that they're like still kind of having a good time doing it.
Right. And I thought the idea of like the fire going off in the background is so smart because it just looks like a 70s rock concert.
It looked so good. Like it was all practical. It was so much fun.
And like more fire keeps going off and they're screeching in the background. And the difference in the lyrics was interesting. I don't think it's going to matter for the plot. I don't think it is.
I don't think it'll matter for the plot. I do think the lyrics are worse in this version, but I understand why they were changed, you know? Yeah, I thought it was really cute. The little bridge section where it's like, it definitely feels like her mom just like directly talking to Alice, which is really cute. That was really sweet. Seeing the actual demon is crazy. Right.
Well, because Alice starts singing and her voice is so pretty. It's a very pretty, very pretty tone.
Halma is, so her, Agatha, Patti LuPone, obviously. Did the other two like sing? Do they do music?
In the
real
world?
Life, yeah. Does Teen sing? Like,
I don't know.
It's such a, like, because if this was like by happenstance, it's a very musical cast to like come up with.
I don't know. I don't feel like I've ever
And if they do all sing, they should definitely sing more.
Right. Yeah, because then a literal demon appears and it's like the manifestation of the curse.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can see it and I can kill it. And then she like sings even more and
It's
the
wild.
demon lights on fire and it flies over and it's mist and it lands on
Crazy.
her. And
it's again like either a puppet or a person in costume.
Right.
Like it is the most quintessential 70s rock album cover demon you've ever
Right.
seen. Like this demon is on like a Meatloaf cover
Right.
somewhere. It's so good.
And it lands on Alice and she like keeps playing and basically she like burns it away, right? She like defeats it and they sing the song, which I don't know, that's just so fun to me that it's like we got to sing this curse away. Like that
It's
is
so good.
such fits the vibe so perfectly for like on so many levels.
And not
obviously,
a single person is like, this is stupid. They're
Right.
all like, of course this is what we need
Right.
to do.
obviously like the idea of this 70s rock star with Alice's mom, but then I don't know, just they had to sing a song to open the road. So of course they have to sing a song to kill
Yeah.
the demon and destroy the curse. Like of course it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so then the piano opens to the exit
Which
and they
is
did it.
fun.
And this whole section was like so much less. The actual trial
Yeah.
was so much less and so much. It just wasn't the focus really of the
It
episode,
was cool.
which
A
I
lot of
thought was cool.
spectacle. Good character moments still. But yeah,
Right.
like their pacing of it. We finished and I was like, I know these episodes go fast, but there's no way we're done.
And the door opens, which is the piano, and Teen faints.
Mhm.
And it quick cuts to them trying to help him. And Agatha, this is like her walls down.
Yeah.
There's no jokes, nothing silly. She's dead fucking serious. And she's upset and she's stressed. And this is the only time I've ever seen her be serious.
And it's crazy. And it's anytime the two of them interact, Agatha and Teen, it's always very genuine, I feel. Even if it
Yes.
starts with jokes. This has pushed it to like a new level where she is like fearful
Right.
of his like death, which is cool. I also think these scenes, they do so much to redeem Agatha's character throughout.
Yes.
Because you're right, like it is this wall and we know she's like hiding stuff, but seeing that wall continuously soften for him, I
Right.
think just these two characters absolutely complete each other, which is
Right.
awesome.
It's so smart because Teen is like so genuine in everything he does. So they
Yeah.
foil each other so well.
And he's looking, I wouldn't say like necessarily like a motherly figure, but like some sort of mentor,
Right.
something. And he's just so like happy-go-lucky about the world. He doesn't mind that Agatha's mean. And it's just,
Right.
it's very clear how much they need each other, which
Yes.
is very fun.
Yeah, it's really well written.
Mhm.
And so Agatha says don't and then looks at Rio and says don't. And it wasn't even like a stern don't, it was sad.
Yeah. Like
And-
a plead.
Right. And again that makes me think like, okay, she really is death, right?
Mhm.
Like don't take him, you know? And I just thought that was very cool. So Jen is basically going to try to heal him and she needs water and moonlight.
I
And
thought that was very funny.
I thought that was funny too, that all she needed was water and moonlight.
And it sort of worked the same way it did last time, where Alice is immediately like, okay, I can do that. And then they go off. And I just, water and moonlight to me made me laugh. Like, that's really
That's it?
stupid. But
Right.
it's very funny.
Well, because then she like basically spells the water that was under the moonlight.
Yeah.
And she's saying, what is she saying? It's 3 of swords. I don't know what, because that's what Patti LuPone says. Lilia
Yeah.
says.
Well, I was wondering, because I was trying to catch the number 3 in Latin. I don't know if that's what she was saying. That might have
Right,
been Patti
okay.
LuPone just doing another vision thing.
Okay, I was wondering.
So I'm not sure. It could be that. I don't know how much it actually matters. Again, I just want to bring the fact that water and moonlight's so funny. Like this like,
Yeah.
healed a giant wound.
Right.
And I feel like those are pretty easy ingredients to find. So I was focused on that. I didn't catch what the Latin words were, but I
Okay.
don't know if they were the same thing as what Patti LuPone was saying.
Okay, then I don't know what she meant.
Me neither.
Right? It'll come back, I guess.
I'm sure.
So she heals it. And it's this is like another moment of just like impeccable acting. Lilia looks at Jennifer and says, look what you did. Right?
I
And
know.
she's like so happy for her. And everyone is just so genuine and so actually living in these characters. It's like
Mhm.
so beautiful and so well done.
Yeah. Even like just calling her like just Jennifer, the full name. I was
Right.
like, this is impactful. This is a side thing, but we have subtitles on when we watch it. And every time they say the word magic, it's spelled Magick.
Yeah, I don't
Wh-
know what that means.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that yet.
I don't know. I don't know what it means. So is that how Marvel like
I have no
spells it?
idea.
Okay.
I
So they're all sitting around a fire and sort of just like sharing kind of stuff about themselves. And Agatha's not there. She's looking over at Teen. And they're all just really bonding. They ask how Jen was bound, and she tells us, but not like a lot. So she says she was invited to this medical conference, and it's like it's supposed to be a big deal, but it was a trap, and the man bound her.
Yeah, which is something I think the show does all the time, where they're like, explain this, and they say the least possible amount,
right?
To where you still feel like, oh, interesting. I need to know more.
Right. So then Alice talks about when her mom died and how she hoped the road wasn't real because now she knows it was all for her. And like Lilia even says that. And she basically says like, that's now you know that. And she says, which makes you sad, but sad is better than angry. And I was like, oh shit. And it's all just
the third sort of mic drop sentence of this episode.
It's all just so genuine.
It is. It's surprisingly genuine.
That's what it is. Cause these moments could feel so, what's the word?
Yeah,
like
these
forced.
These could be the boring tie-ins that bookend the trials, but they're legitimately my favorite part of the show. Because
it's so, these characters are written in such a real way, which is so fun because we're in a magical world. And so rooting these characters and making them so incredibly real people, because if you took out all the magic and they were doing other things, right? All the dialogue would still fit. All the moments of them being together would still fit.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes it so impactful, because it feels so real to you as a viewer. You watching feel like you can empathize and put yourself in their shoes, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's really neat because like we said at the beginning, the episodes sort of continue one after another. So they really haven't been around each other that long. Right? It's been like 2 days maybe.
Yeah.
But the progression of their friendships and relationships are just so believable. Like I've never once been like, it's only been this, that wouldn't be, I don't care, because the acting's phenomenal. The writing is great. And
well, so you know how you talk about like a power crawl, how people will, if you start someone out at like a 10 in the story of how powerful they are, it's like not fun. So you start the story with people and they gain power, and like Avatar The Last Airbender like does such a great power crawl. Yeah. It's like an emotional crawl, right? Like they're bonding. That's like they started hating each other so much, and I feel like this is that exact same thing where it's like it's so slow because we just in 20 minutes ago we saw them bickering and blaming each other for things. Yeah. And in life or death situations, of course, you're going to bond over those, and of course when they all care about Teen at least on some level because he's a kid, right? So putting a kid in the mix will like tug on your heartstrings more and make you more emotional. And then adding Rio into the mix, who's like this scary unknown. So it all just is so justified why. Yeah. And such like sad is better than angry is such a like elementary way to say it, right? Like that could have been so like, okay, yeah, whatever
here's
moment.
What this episode's about.
Right. Like we get it, in your face theme, but instead, because the acting was so genuine and everything behind it of all these characters getting closer and closer, it was so impactful that those simple words were more powerful than some eloquent hidden meaning metaphor.
Yeah, and I think like to marry the words and the dialogue in these scenes do a really good job of explaining in like a real life scenario, while at the same time these like spectacle filled trials are basically just therapy for everybody. Like we literally got rid of Alice's inner demons this episode. Literally, you know? Yeah. And I think that's crazy. It's so good.
Yeah. So Jen even like gives her a concoction for her pressure points. I'm guessing because she said like bring Advil later. Yeah. Like it was so cute.
It's very cute.
So then we cut to Agatha, and this set is, the lighting is unbelievable. It's like these beams of like beautiful moonlight through the trees. It's gorgeous.
Anybody
it's like purple.
Who is doing TV should watch this show for what colors and what exposure you should be shooting at.
It's so good. It's so
like,
pretty.
The road is so dark and so scary, but I've never had an issue seeing anything. Right. And on top of that, it looks great. Like it is not only technically well executed, it is artistically a feat, honestly. It's so good.
So Teen wakes up and he just flat out asks Agatha if she put the sigil on him. And she says, well, no, but then she says, well, actually, I wouldn't know because the sigil works in the witch who cast them too. And I thought that was really cool. Again, we're getting more information. So, like, it could be her. I don't think it was her, but it totally could be her. And which actually means it could be anyone here.
Yeah.
And he asks if it can be lifted, but sigils aren't lifted, they're destroyed. And she says when they're no longer needed. I'm like, so what, does she think she did it? I don't think she thinks she did it.
I don't think so. I took that as like the most realistic way that this will be lifted is if you die, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But again, I think it's another good example of like they told us a little bit, but there's so much more left to tell.
Right. So they kind of have like a cute moment. Like Agatha's being nice to him and he's really kind of being nice back and she's not just cutting him off. And then he says, Agatha, what really happened to your son? And I knew it.
I was not ready for that.
I was like, no, I knew she was going to put her wall back up. Like I saw it. I saw the moment that like she was laying these bricks. It's beautiful acting by her. So well done. And she just like gets annoyed and goes back to her defense mechanism, tells him to heal fast. We're not going to be here long.
Yep.
And I think there is like a predictability nature to it of like, I can predict what her character will do. And I think that's a positive, not a negative.
I agree.
Right? Because she is acting so in line with her character.
Well, you want her to make the decision you know she's not going to.
Exactly. Because I'm rooting for her to not do it. I'm rooting for her to not put on this face of who she's pretending to be. It's so well done. And that's just, again, good writing. So then we're back at the fire and they're kind of being silly. And Lily's talking about how like she had this vampire bite and
that was crazy too. Like
cut to.
It's so good because like another just dropped. You're like, oh shit, vampires are real.
Right.
You know?
And
yeah, especially like maybe this is all like common knowledge to like people who like follow Marvel or whatever. Yeah. But it is so funny to me how casually they drop just lore about this world.
Right.
And it's always for comedy, which I think is really funny. And in a weird way, supernatural. Like, nobody's, in that one sentence, I not only know vampires are real, I understand what level of threat they pose to the world at large, what level of threat they are to witches specifically. And it's so good.
It is. And so this is like a huge moment. You called this out. So Lily goes, I kind of hated you guys before, but now, and she stops and she pauses and she just freezes. And they laugh and Jen's like, but now what? And Lily is like, huh? And Jen's like, Lilia, where do you go? Where do you go? And you
I thought this was absolutely wild. So as soon as she started having the freak out things, immediately I was understanding like, okay, they're from somewhere else. Right. And I think I assumed they were just from the future.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Obviously, like she wouldn't know these people. She has the sight. She's
like literally reads fortunes when we meet her. So I'm fully under the belief that she can see the future. Right. But it's not like super controllable. But this one, I think, is where we've caught up. Yeah. Right? Because I forget which episode it is.
It was the potions episode.
Okay.
So the episode before.
Okay, so it's one episode back.
She says it 2 things in the episode before.
Okay. Because, at some point before this episode, she just blurts out, I love you guys. And I was like, I wonder when she's going to say that.
Right.
And it feels like it would be in that moment. So not only does this like sort of prove the point that she's like taking visions from the future, right? Like you said, she's sort of fully transported there. It's a ticking clock now because they may not all be the same distance, but they're like, it's not like years in the future. Like she said that like a day or 2 ago,
right?
Which is crazy because just this episode, she was like, Alice, don't. I'm like, what the fuck is Alice going to do next episode?
She said it technically this day. So they went because this episode started right when the like beach house thing ended.
Yeah.
And she said it when they were in the house. That's when she said, I love you guys, right?
I think so. I don't know.
She did because she said it to Agatha. And then after that, she started saying like, try to save Agatha. Do you remember? So she said it in the poisons episode.
Yeah.
And or did she say it when they were like conjuring the road?
I don't know.
Shoot. I want to look it up.
But it's like on top of all this other stuff that's going on, there is now like a ticking clock of specifically all the things she has said,
Right.
which is crazy to me. So super excited about that.
Okay, yeah. So people are looking at it. So if she had a vision in episode 2 where she says, "Get off me," and apparently she says that exact thing in this episode. She says, "Get it off me," which is the curse. And then some people are wondering if her lines go together. So she said, "Try to save Agatha, try to save Agatha," and then in this episode she said, "Alice, don't." And it's like, what is she saying? Alice, don't try to save Agatha, right? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what it is, but it'd be a fun twist.
It is crazy how many points they have balancing
Right.
throughout the show. There's so many things to latch onto. So many people are looking into so many things. And it is awesome.
So then Agatha comes up and sits next to Rio. She joins the group. And I just think, again, they're so clever with their blocking and their staging because Agatha knows Rio. So her sitting right next to her just sort of just like tells you who they are. It's so thought through. And they tell Agatha, "Show us your battle scars." And she says she took a knitting needle to the elbow. And it's just funny. And then Rio says, "I've got a scar." And Agatha says, "No, you don't." She says, "Yes, I do. A long time ago, I loved someone and I had to do something I did not want to do, even though it was my job and it hurt them. She is my scar." And it's like, oh. And I feel like it's supposed to be twofold. I'm guessing it's like, obviously, I'm thinking she's referencing both like Agatha, but also like what Agatha had to do with the Darkhold and her son, right? Is that what you're getting from that?
That's, yeah.
Okay.
I'm wondering almost if they went down the road together, Agatha was thinking if Rio is death, maybe she wouldn't have to sacrifice her son. And then like the witch code or whatever, like she had to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel like Agatha's character would have just said like, "Here is my son."
Yeah.
I feel like it was like, "Take what you want," thinking like her son was not an option to take, right? Like, yes, I will make the sacrifice, thinking it was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it was her son that was taken, right? Like, I don't think she willingly, knowing it was her son.
I don't think it was Rio's choice either. Like, I think
No,
like,
I don't
the
think it was.
fate of the Darkhold or whatever was
Right.
like, I have to take your son. And she's like, "No, you're doing this on or whatever," right? Like,
Right.
that's where this riff comes from.
Some people think, because you know how they dropped Mephisto in the last episode? Some
Yeah.
people think that he was the one who had the Darkhold first, or like basically a lot of people have a lot of thoughts. I think the sigil on Teen is from Mephisto, right?
Okay.
Which, who is Mephisto again?
I don't really know. He's like a demon guy. I'll look him up really quick.
Okay, cool.
Mephisto is a fictional character appearing in the Marvel Comics. He literally looks like the devil. That's crazy. Okay. The cosmically powerful demon Mephisto takes great pride in and power from corrupting souls. I think he's another one of those characters who like has gone through a lot of iterations. So I don't know what they're going to take for the show specifically.
Right. Or if he even, because people thought he was going to come from WandaVision and he did not.
That's true. Yeah, the only thing that the creators have said is that the name drop is supposed to mess with the audience.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. He often strikes deceptive bargains with the living.
Right. So like this could be a bargain for the Darkhold.
Monarch of evil. Rules a fiery nether realm and loves impersonating the biblical Satan. Dang.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that at the end of this road, Mephisto being like the big bad could make sense.
Sure. Another telling starts 4 billion years ago when Mephisto appeared on Earth as a maggot-laying fly.
Oh.
As the deceased celestial bleeds its fate-changing blood into the whatever planet. From there, he begins manipulating creatures all over space and time. That's wild.
That is.
So, yeah, getting into like overarching Marvel lore or something or other. But I don't know. I don't think we know a ton definitively about Mephisto.
Okay. So then after Rio tells that story, like obviously affects Agatha, they're all silent. And I'm like, dang, like Rio bringing down the mood.
I know.
And Agatha says, "I'm going to stretch my legs." And she walks off. And Rio follows. But Lilia stops her. She grabs her arm. I felt like this was bold. And she says, "Don't think for a second I've forgotten what you said in the sound booth." And lets her go. And I was like, yeah, that was bold, especially because like everyone was so afraid of Rio earlier. it's interesting if that is gonna like become tension filled or if it's going to build to where like Rio trusts the group too.
Yeah.
You know, because I definitely feel like this coven is going to come together and like learn to be better and love each other and this
For
and that.
sure,
And we're gonna
yeah.
have this cool arc for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, where does Rio fit into that? Which is cool because like we talked a little bit about even if it is predictable, we don't really care. And it's cool because now I'm like, I have no fucking clue what to predict. Rio is
Yeah.
like a true like just throwing you off, right? You have no clue what she actually means. So I think that's
It's very
really cool. So then Rio comes up behind Agatha and they hug, and it's like a very long hug, and they're like
Sensual.
right, and they're like stroking each other's heads, and then they're just like and their hair, and it seems like very sweet, very intimate, and Agatha almost kisses her, and then Rio stops her and says, that boy isn't yours. And I saw it. I saw her go from being vulnerable and the real Agatha who she really is, and I saw her laying these bricks, and I was like, she's gonna smile and walk away. Like, I know that's what she's gonna do. I know it. And I was like, Agatha, don't just like be vulnerable in this moment. And she smiles. She gives her, it's like not even like a sweet smile. It's like sassy,
It's a
like
little-
playful smile, and she's like, all right, and walks away. And that's the episode.
Dang.
I liked it. I thought it was cool that it was
great.
a change from last week where it was a lot more character driven, and I think the introduction of Rio is really cool. I don't know where we're gonna go from here. I think what it's gonna be is 2 more trials. I think we're gonna have Air and Earth for surezies. And then I think we're gonna get into sort of a switch up. Right. I think we're gonna have Air and Earth, and then we're gonna, because that would be episode 5 and 6. And then I think 7.
We know there's 9 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's confirmed.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah, because this was 4. So 5 and 6, 2 more trials. Then we have 7, 8, 9. Right. And I think that's going to be where things kind of switch up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll depend on if the last episode is going to be like a final point or a watch out for season 2 where we continue, you know?
I think it's going to be a final. I think
Really?
I think we're ending it.
That's crazy. So I don't know. It's too early for me to like accurately feel good about predicting anything. But I think I wrote this down somewhere. This episode felt like the first one, not in terms of like episodic, because we're gaining information and gaining characters and stuff, but this one felt like all the rules have sort of been established.
Yeah.
You know, and we did talk about new stuff. We learned new stuff, but like the tone, how the characters are going to act, like this seems like the episode that most could be in an episodic thing, right?
Yes.
Like the characters we know do a thing and learn something.
Which maybe I'm totally wrong, because maybe they're going to fully change the form.
I'm wondering if they're going to change it up,
Because
I felt the most comfortable in this episode,
Right.
even with the new stuff, and I bet they know that.
Yes,
You
because
know?
it's rule of 3s. We've done 1 trial, 2 trial,
Yeah.
and now they're going to bring something.
I'm wondering, I bet something's going to go wrong with the 3rd trial. Like it's going to be like they're going to do their trial and then they're going to be like transported somewhere else, or like somebody's going to take them, or they're going to run into somebody else. Like this is going to be the first like actual bump
in the road.
Right.
You know? I'm wondering if we know what 5 is called yet. No. Okay.
Dang. The show is so much fun.
It is so much fun.
I love talking about it. I love watching it. I really like talking about where we think it's gonna go, because I don't know anything about the comics. We watched WandaVision, but I have no idea where the show is going, and that's super fun to me. But it all still makes sense, which is cool. So.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Do you have a quote for this episode?
I do. So my quote is, "Once vengeance is loosed, you can't reel it back in." I thought that was cool, because I think I feel like everything they say has meaning for sure, and they kind of have showed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, it was a really good episode. I
Really
liked it.
good.
I'm very excited. I don't like watching week to week, so I want to watch the next one.
It's fun
sure.
to like look forward to it though.
It is. That's true. I'm always really excited.
I do, when it all comes out, I want to binge it so bad and like take notes of everything that I feel like I'm missing right now. Because it is packed to the brim of people who know what they're doing and are passionate about this story. And that is so fun to watch.
And part of the fun is that everyone getting to come up with these theories. So I guess like week by week makes that possible, right? What is going to happen? Who is the characters? What's the secrets, right? All these theories. There's so many theories floating around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just makes it really fun to try to theorize yourself.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks so much for listening to us talk about episode 4 of Agatha All Along. If you liked our takes, or if you didn't, we'd love to hear what you thought in the comments. Interacting with us based on what platform you're on. Give us a rating, a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, rate us on podcast apps. All of that helps spread the show and get it heard by more people. Like we just said, the most fun part about watching the show is interacting with the community. We've had a ton of conversations and debates in TikTok and YouTube about our thoughts and y'all's thoughts, and that's been a ton of fun. But for right now, I'm Alex.
I'm Madison.
And this has been
Welcome to the Writers' Room.
We'll see you next time.